Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside Dave
Hello.
and John.
Hello.
Hello. Guys, before we get started into our regular podcast, I just wanted to quickly just touch upon, obviously, the fact that we took a bit of a wee break last week. We postponed to this week. Dave, I hope you don't mind. I know one of our extended Door 14 family lost a loved one in the last week. Gemma, your good, lovely wife. Unfortunately, her mum passed away just last week. And we just kind of wanted to just obviously send our condolences to the whole McCallion family. Tough loss for the family. Such a big personality, such a big presence within their family. We just wanted to just start off this episode just by, obviously saying, hopefully you're doing okay, Dave, but also out to the full McCallion clan and just sending our love that way, in that direction.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Guys, as we always start off, I just wanted to touch base, see how you're getting on. John, I seen your face over the weekend, so I'll come to you last. Dave, I know it was a tough week. The last 2 weeks probably been quite tough for you guys, but how you doing? How are you doing today?
Yeah, just keeping busy is the best way, and trying to find a wee bit of normality in the chaos of the last few weeks.
Yeah, and we've got a game on this coming Tuesday in the SSA Arena. Tuesday,
Yep.
Back to CHL action.
Yep, really looking forward to it. Sort of going to be a true test, and if we can get a win, then we might even have a chance on our hands. But we'll see.
We'll see. We'll hopefully see that. And John, we'll see you at the SSA Arena this coming Tuesday as well, I guess.
Certainly will. I am flying out from Edinburgh at about, I think it's like 4:30 or 4:00 on Tuesday. So fingers crossed there's no delays, and the buses are running as expertly as TransLink always do, and I get myself down with plenty of time. The unfortunate thing is I'm not going to have time to stop at my father-in-law's, so I am going to end up with a bag search, and they are just going to see that one sad pair of boxers at the bottom of that rucksack, because that's pretty much all I'm bringing.
Oh, at least you're traveling light, which is great.
Look, the other option is just to do the other way, and it's just to either turn the boxers inside out or turn them back to front. But I'm expecting to have a couple of pints at the game, so that's just a risk I'm not willing to take.
As I mentioned, John, I did see your face in live in person over the weekend. We attended the Belfast Giants away trip there in Glasgow. Well, away for me, home for you, in Glasgow and in Fife.
Glasgow's still an away trip. Calm down.
Okay, Glasgow's still an away trip for you, but it's like an hour up the road, so you're splitting hairs there. But how you doing? I know I only seen you on Sunday last, but how are you doing?
I'm good. Like I say, it was really, really good to see you and to spend some time at the hockey. It's the first real live hockey I've been to see, other than, I'm trying to remember if I went to pre-season. I think I did. I think I went to a pre-season game in Dundee. But seeing competitive hockey is just different gravy altogether. And I know we'll probably come on to talk about the games, obviously, because we were both there. But yeah, really good. And Giants look hot.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be talking about that Fife game. There's a burning discussion going on right now about after that Fife game and so we will come back to that Fife game. I'll probably talk quite in depth about that in our first period of hockey. The one other thing I wanted to raise before we moved on to our show, our regular show. Aaron isn't here tonight. Mr. Mitchell's not here tonight. I obviously wasn't here for the last podcast because it was my birthday, as people were told by yourself and Mr. Mitchell. And I just wanted to clear up something.
Look,
no.
You're looking well for 101, mate.
I want to clear up any confusion. I want to clear up some nasty rumors that were spread on that podcast whenever I wasn't here. There was an accusation. I think there was an accusation that I was 48. I think it started out at, or something like that.
Listen.
Slightly increased.
You can't prove anything. Let's see your driver's license up on the screen here if you want to refute it.
Which resulted in quite a few of you in the SSE coming up to me at the last game and saying, "Oh, happy birthday! So what age are you really? Are you really 40? Because you look great for 40."
You're looking well.
I was like, no, I'm not 40. I'm not anywhere near 40 yet. So just for clarity, I'm not anywhere near 40, and I will get you guys back at some
I
point.
wouldn't say not anywhere near 40.
Yeah, come on. You talk about splitting hairs, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
If I,
go.
if I can see
Aaron,
40 on the horizon, so can you, buddy.
Aaron isn't here tonight. He has work commitments and he's flying off to America on Sunday, I believe, for a conference, as he calls it. So yeah, he's going over for a jolly, I'm guessing, with work. It's fully paid for.
When is it not a jolly when it's him?
Exactly. I don't think he's catching any hockey though, which is unfortunate. But he will hopefully be on our next episode in 2 weeks' time, and we hope to see him back as well. And hopefully we'll get everybody together because it has been a while. Guys, if it's okay with you, what we'll do is we'll get stuck in to our regular show. And as we start our regular show during the regular season, I just want to take a quick rundown and a quick look across the league. Very early days. Obviously, we've only had 2 or 3 weekends played, mostly cup, but also we've had our first games in the league as well. So I just want to go across the league and have a rundown of where things are currently standing, and just kind of just start off as we mean to go on this season. So starting in the Elite Ice Hockey League, sitting in top place is the Manchester Storm, having played 4 games and taken 7 points. The Cardiff Devils are sitting in second with 2 games played and 4 points. Sheffield Steelers are in third place with 3 games played, 4 points. Fife Flyers are in fourth place with 1 game played, 2 points. Nottingham Panthers are in fifth with 2 games played, 2 points. Dundee are in sixth with 2 games played, 2 points. Guildford Flames are in seventh with 3 games played, 2 points. Coventry in 8th with 2 games played, 1 point. Belfast, even though they haven't played any games yet, are in 9th place with no games played and no points. And Glasgow sit bottom of the league, having played 1 game with no points. As I say, really early days, but coming out of the blocks, we've seen it before. And you know, listen, I don't want to sound this way, but we've seen this before. We've seen this in previous seasons where we've seen Manchester, I think it was maybe 2 seasons ago, came out of the blocks, all guns firing, start off really strong right up until around about maybe November, December time. Really good, strong performances going on, and then January kind of crash kind of idea. But Manchester this year, starting off 4 games played, 7 points. Good start by them, Dave.
Oh yeah, they really, really good. It's going to be another one of those seasons, I have a feeling anyway, where it's hopefully going to be up for grabs. We've seen that with Guildford putting a marker down last year, and hopefully we'll see something similar where we get more of unusual teams in the mix. The more competitive the league is, the better it is for all of us.
Agreed, definitely. And we talk about, obviously, that, as you said, like the more competitive people are, and you know, as teams start to kind of move forward, and the kind of the teams that we don't expect. Obviously, we obviously seen Guildford last year doing that from the start. You know, coming off strong, continuing strong right up until the pretty much final weekends of the season. Guildford coming into the season sitting in seventh. Obviously, haven't played 3 games so far and having 2 points from those 3 games. Again, early days, I know, but Guildford came into the season with, I suppose, a lot of pressure on them, John, I would say. Do you think that pressure is gonna, I suppose, push them down a bit? Do you think they're gonna struggle with the pressure that's been put on them?
I don't think they're going to struggle with the pressure. They are the team with the second most pressure on them in the Elite League, let's be totally honest. The Belfast Giants have all the pressure on them to do what they did last season, because if anyone doesn't remember, the Belfast Giants won a Grand Slam last year. And yeah, the weight of expectation is absolutely on Adam Keefe and the guys in teal this year, but the way that Guildford performed through last season, little stumbling block after Christmas, and to be honest, that's what ended up costing them the league. It was that stumble and let the Giants catch up in the end and take it to the final weekend. But yeah, people expect Guildford to be there or thereabouts again, the same way that they expect Sheffield or Cardiff to be there or thereabouts. The difference is that Sheffield and Cardiff are used to being in that position the same way that Belfast are. It's almost water off a duck's back when you look at it that way. When you're Guildford, especially with the decisions that were made around the Continental Cup, that's a team that have put additional pressure on their own backs by choosing not to take part in that competition, by saying they want to concentrate domestic. and look at trophies that they can win here in the UK. So, yeah, that weight of expectation can either buoy a team and get them fired up, or it can crush them under the weight.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, again, as you say, the pressures, the two teams we're looking at pressure obviously is Belfast and Guildford from a different, maybe slightly different reason. Belfast haven't yet played in the league title yet. They haven't played any league games yet. Obviously, playing in the Challenge Cup. We'll come to the Challenge Cup in a few minutes, and we'll talk about the Belfast Giants and how they've started off their season. Just before you do move on to the Challenge Cup, I just wanted to kind of touch base again just about two other bits and pieces. Obviously, Cardiff are sitting there in second place, and today the Cardiff Devils have announced the signing of a new power forward coming in, and that's Canadian Brandon Alderson, who will arrive this week. But I don't think he's playing at this weekend's games. I think they said that he wouldn't be here in time for that. Another signing, I suppose, to kind of just bolster their front lines and their forward lines. Cardiff starting off there, as I say, with 2 games played and 4 points, taking their full points from their 2 games played. Cardiff always, we talk about it every year. We expect Cardiff to kind of come in and be battling there at the top spot of the league. Last year they maybe didn't do as well as they were hoping they would do, and they didn't finish maybe in the positions that they wanted to finish last year. What's your thoughts on Cardiff at the moment and how they're starting to perform, Dave?
It's hard to say. At this stage in the season, obviously 100%. The couple of games they've played, you can't complain, obviously, but we won't know much until we get down the run. I did obviously we'll probably be talking about it, but the interesting interview that their big boss man decided to have is probably not going to help. But hey ho, we'll see what happens. Our bosses have always called us weird things. Was the Giants were told to wind our necks in for, and then what was the other one that Walser was? Our expectations are too high.
Yeah, we should be setting them lower. I do remember that actually. Yeah, I do remember.
So we're not on you. We've heard it ourselves. Whenever it doesn't seem to match up, but especially for a team that you think is probably going to be pushing this year, for like a strange miscommunication between their big boss man and their fans is a bit strange.
Yeah, I would agree. John, your thoughts? I mean, Cardiff and Sheffield. Well, you can talk about Sheffield as well if you'd like to. But your thoughts there in terms of the Cardiff, but also obviously Sheffield in third place at the moment, 3 games played and 4 points, dropping 2 points there, 1 game from the first few games. Your thoughts there? Obviously, they'll be the other team. Sheffield being the other team, will probably be looking at in the top 4 finish. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's usual suspects. To be honest, I think the top 3. By the time we get to April, you could probably already name. I don't think there's going to be any massive change. I don't think any of the other 7 teams have progressed in any strong way, really, that they're going to be fighting. Or sorry, 4 teams. Let's throw Guildford in there. To be totally honest, the more interesting thing for me, and I know we're going to talk about them in a minute, is the Scottish teams. They have strengthened. Don't get me wrong. I think Dundee is maybe the exception to that. I don't really think that they have progressed as much as every other team seems to have in the league. Dundee seem to be fairly stagnant, and they've, well, don't want to say new coach. They've brought an old coach back, but it's another situation where probably some deals were done. I don't think it's an overly new team. But I just don't think they've made the right kinds of changes. Fife and Glasgow, though. Glasgow are that middle team out the Scottish lot for me. I think they have made improvements. I think they are looking like a better team. They're looking like a better organisation. Just generally, everything looks better if you're over in Glasgow. However, Fife, to me, are hands down the most dangerous Scottish team at this moment. That 1-0 game in the Cup, granted, it's at home, it's in Kirkcaldy, it's a difficult rink for any team to go into. It doesn't matter if you're a Grand Slam team or if you're sitting in 8th or 9th in the league, possibly even just one above Fife, generally where they tend to be. That is always a difficult rink to go into. And Tom Cullen has made some remarkable differences in there. They were extremely competitive, extremely fast, physical when they had to be. There is skill within that lineup as well. They will win big games this season. Not sure if they're going to walk away with any silverware for it, but they are going to take some scalps through the season, and every team should be afraid of that Five Flyer squad this year.
I'm just gonna. The one thing I'm gonna do before we move on is I want to make sure I echo what John is saying in relation to the Five Flyers. I want to just say that I agree with you in terms of from what I've seen with the Five Flyers, especially this past weekend. I 100% agree with what you're saying, and the reason why I want to back you up is because I don't want anybody. I'm looking at who's watching, and I can see Mark is watching. I just want to make sure and highlight that I don't think he's trying to switch over to the Five Flyers, Mark. I don't think that's what it is. It's not that he's trying to big up the Five Flyers because he's trying to switch allegiances. Because I would agree. I think Fife looked pretty strong this past weekend, and I'll back you up on that. So this just so it doesn't look like you're switching your allegiance over there from the Belfast Giants.
They also had a big win in Coventry, 6-4 away, which is the Sky Dome's a big building to go into. So yeah, that's it can only be sort of positive looking at that.
Yep. I'm going to switch, guys, to our attention just over to the cup, the Challenge Cup, John's favorite trophy, and I'm just going to have a quick look there. One team has already qualified, shall we say, had already cemented their place. A second team kind of maybe have claimed that they have. We'll talk about that as well in period one. But the Belfast Giants, I think, after the game against Fife this past Saturday, I think they on Twitter they confirmed that they have already secured their slot into the next round, which I guess is pretty. I think it's top 3 from the Group A that goes through anyway. The Giants have played 4 games and have scored 8 points from those 4 games, so an unbeaten record there. The Five Flyers have played 3 games and scored 2 points, and the Glasgow Clan have played 3 and scored 2. Dundee have played 2 and scored no points. Also, the other groups have played as well. Coventry, Cardiff, and Guildford are in Group B, so haven't played 2 games apiece, and each team is sitting on 2 points as well, each, having lost 1 as well, each. And then in Group C, we have Sheffield Steelers, Nottingham Panthers, and Manchester Storm. Sheffield Steelers haven't played 1 game and scoring 2 points. Nottingham Panthers have played 2 games and 2 points, and in Manchester have played 1 game and no points. So it will be interesting to see who just clinches those other spots in the 2 other groups. Obviously, John, as before we come on, we were talking about obviously the Challenge Cup. We know that the league put out a statement during the off season that the Challenge Cup, as we know it, and as we have known it up until this point, or until last year, will continue in that format for this year, for the 2023-2024 season. So we will have our usual group stages followed by our knockout stages after that. So it's, I think, for our group, in Group A, we have 6 games, so 1 game at home and 1 game away for each team, and it's 2 games and 2 games home and 2 games away for the other groups. And just to clarify that, I think, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure this will come out later in the season, but I think there was conversations being had about potential, if there's going to be changes for the Challenge Cup come next season. So we will look forward to potentially something coming out later in this season in relation to the Challenge Cup and the structure of the Challenge Cup. Because, John, we all know it's your favorite. Guys, I think that's it for our warm-up. Anybody else have anything before we move on?
Just one thing. I just want to... I can't throw up the comments this week, but Mark did actually comment as we were chatting at the very start there, and he's got a question for you, Marty. What's up with being 40?
There's nothing wrong with being 40. I don't think he was referring to me. Was he referring to me? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, Mark. There's nothing wrong with being 40. Nothing at all. We do have one other comment as well. Came through from Mike, who's watching on YouTube. And he's just saying it's okay for teams to be competitive. Investment into rinks is required. It also needs one leading body, mainstream media, and grassroots grounding. Football has taken decades to figure it out.
Listen. We're not going to get the sort of grassroots improvements. We're not going to get the mainstream media if teams like Fife don't even resurface their car park.
That was an experience.
How's your ankles after the weekend, Marty?
Oh my God. Like, I honestly, I think when we were coming out in the pitch darkness and walking through the car park back to your car, I did go into a pothole and I thought my life is over. I just thought I'm going to break every single bone in my 40-year-old body. And yeah, it was dangerous. And I was saying to you, at least we took your car because we obviously I had a hire car over the weekend, and I had a wee Fiat 500. Wee Fiat 500 as a hire car, and I swear if I had to take that to the rink, I genuinely think it would have went into one of those potholes, and I would have
there were
lost
there were
the car.
potholes bigger than that 500.
Definitely. It's crazy. It's insane. Really is insane. And I think that's got worse since the last time I was there. I've been there twice before, and I think that's definitely the worst it's been. Definitely.
Yeah, it hasn't been relayed since you were there last time. That's why.
Definitely not. Clearly not. Okay, guys. I am gonna call it there for our pre-game amble, shall we say, our pre-game, and we're gonna get swiftly moved on to our period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of stories coming out of the UK. So that would be that Elite League or NIHL or whatever that might be. So any stories that grab our attention from around the UK. I am going to start off this period with probably the most pressing conversation that's been, I suppose, hitting social media. It's been up in the rounds from this past weekend. As we mentioned, me and John were in Fife Ice Arena on Saturday night for the Challenge Cup game against Belfast Giants versus the Fife Flyers. There was a non-call, shall we say, John, on the ice in the third period, in which there was a collision on I think it was Ericsson, if I remember correctly. There was a collision, a hit from one of the Belfast Giants players, and a slight collision then for Ericsson into the plexi corner just by the away bench. So it looked like maybe there was a bit of a hit, which was clean. I'm going to say it now. It was a clean hit. There was nothing wrong with the hit from the Belfast Giants player. There was nothing wrong with it at all. It just seemed to be whatever way the hit was done and the location of where the hit happened. Ericsson, I believe it was Ericsson, continued on and hit the corner part of the plexi, just kind of where the ridge where the plexi starts into the fan section, and then was probably winded or knocked down and kind of came out, and it looked quite bad. It did look bad. He took a core hit and it went down. I think there was a bit of a mix around whether or not the ref should have called a penalty.
There was nobody calling for a call other than a small section of Flyers fans who we could see them. So we were on that side, if you like, where we were sitting in the away section, and we saw the hit, and it was very clear immediately that Ericsson had taken an awkward hit, like you said, from the corner of the plexi. But at the time, I jumped straight up and was like, the play has to be called dead. But it was absolutely in inverted commas, clean hit. It is a clean hit. It's unfortunate where it was. He was getting squeezed out by the Giants player. It was an offensive rush by the Flyers. And if that's 3 feet forward from the initial point of contact, all that happens is he gets rubbed up the boards and up the plexi into the corner, and absolutely no problem. It's unfortunate. It led to a significant delay between Ericsson being looked after rightly by the on-ice medical staff, and then the ice crew coming on to effect. I think what happened is they replaced the padding that was around that sort of corner stanchion of the plexi where it starts, because it had obviously been either dislodged or whatever had happened. So the ice crew came on and fixed it before play could resume. But for any fan watching, if you are at a game and you see something like that and you think it's dirty, do you know what? Take a second, have a look at the benches, have a look at the coaches, because I'll tell you right now, if there was a call to be made there, from a Fife Flyers perspective, Tom Coolan would have been losing it on the bench. The rest of the Flyers players would have been losing it. There would have been a much bigger call for the Giants player to answer the bell for what would have been perceived as a dirty hit. Absolutely none of that happened. None of the benches reacted. None of the coaches reacted. There was a little bit of, I don't even want to call it handbags, there was just a bit of grabbing on the ice afterwards, because it just looked like a heavy hit at the time. That was it. So if you're going to lose it in the stands and start shouting and swearing at officials and players and all the rest of it, and we're going to come on to what this has kind of led into in a second, take a beat, have a look at the players, have a look at the guys who are actually playing the game and know it inside out, because that's going to tell you what your reaction should be.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, one fan in particular who I had clocked earlier in the night because he was getting more and more animated as the pints were maybe slightly going back a bit more, because he was in the bar, I think, during that final period. We were sensible and we were going for pints of Coke Zero and stuff, which is the oddest thing for an away game for me. But as we were kind of in and around the arena, or we were in around the bar area, you could see how he was getting a bit more agitated and riled up, banging on the plexi in that final period. But then, as the final whistle went and the refs were leaving the ice, said fan decided to follow the refs off the ice, or try to follow the refs off the ice. To which
so he was hanging down off the stands to start with. So if you don't know Kirkcaldy, the stripes come off more or less at centre ice on the penalty box side, and then have to turn right, walk down past a stand of fans before they turn left and go into their locker room. There are a few members of security, just rink staff, essentially, standing around there. But this fan decided to hang over the edge of this. Now, this is not the first time that the Flyers have had problems with interactions from the stands, either with players and officials, but that's neither here nor there. Player was leaning over the side, having a bit of verbals with the linesman. There definitely was a back and forward with the stripes. It's with one of the linesmen in particular who stopped to engage with this fan. I don't think that's right either. I think these guys, we don't have a game without the stripes, but they maybe need to realise that standing and maybe having a word with fans who, let's be honest, they've had a couple of hours to have a few jars as well. It's maybe not the best thing to do. That's not in any way defending what the fan has done. But he's then run down the stairs at the little inlet that goes to the officials' locker room, and we've lost sight of him at that point for a few seconds. The next time we see him is basically with both arms behind his back, being led out of the rink by security. So absolutely no excuse. And Marty, I think you're going to talk about what the reaction then has come from the league.
Yeah, so the league, the abuse on on ice, off ice, so we call it, that abuse, that physical altercation that obviously was diffused after security getting involved. Also then after game led on to abuse online, in which we had fans from the Fife Flyers sliding into the refs' DMs and shouting abuse at the refs as well, the game officials, and their personal social media accounts. There was a post put out by the Elite League that just simply said, when the game's on, the game is on. When the game's over, the game is over. Abusive DMs into game officials' personal social media accounts, not cool, never cool. And they've shown one of the responses, which was, you and your brother are a disgrace. Hope the fan got a punch in. We've talked about it before, guys. The Elite League and X, shall we say, not Twitter, X or whatever way you want to call it. I know, John, you don't want to move over to X. You want to keep calling it Twitter. But we've talked about this before. We've talked about this in seasons prior. Fans get riled up. Fans will say whatever it is, and we can have a moan about the refs of the Elite League. We've had players who have had a moan about the refs in the Elite League. We've had players coming out at the end of the season on said social media platform and just letting loose and just letting it flow in relation to what their thoughts were on reffing in this league. That's no secret. We all know that Conway did that at the end of last season. But at the end of the day, and I've seen this put up by many, many people, and I have to agree with it, if we don't have refs, there's no game. And it's so hard if you have a ref who's just if you're getting refs who are getting, and rightly or wrongly, you can have your own opinion on how good the reffing is in this league and whatever else is. We know there's some that are great. We know there's some others that maybe they're slightly questionable. And when you see their name on the game sheet, you're kind of like, oh no, it's going to be a hard night. But at the end of the day, if we don't have people wanting to come through to become linesmen or officials on the ice, we'll struggle. At the end of the day, how are we going to replace those ones who are coming up who decide to leave? It's all about the progression of reffing and how do we improve the reffing in this league.
And look, we have left. We've lost officials through this already. Off the back of this, there have been conversations on social media about people who have left the game because of either abuse directed at them or at family, at parents, whatever. Todd Kelman put it incredibly well on A View from the Bridge this week, where he said that the officials, we know that players play the game because they love the game, especially when you get to the sort of positions of our league. They're not playing it for the big bucks, they're playing it for the love of the game. The same is absolutely true of the officials. They are officials on the ice because they love the game and they love being officials. This gives them the opportunity to serve the game that they love. Nobody on social media has any right to take that away from anyone. Nobody in the stands has any right to take that away from anyone. So I think I don't often use this this phrase that was, Dave, you said it earlier, it was directed at us as Belfast Giants fans, but you know what? See on social media, wind your neck in, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's a tough one. Like whenever I know we've all shouted, but most like at refs and during games and stuff. But like once the game's over, let bygones. At the end of the day, that's their job. I wouldn't be able. Like, could you imagine doing this in your day to day? Sitting at your desk on your computer and someone's shouting over your corner, shouting over your shoulder at you, you would lose the plot, and that's just not fair. So let's keep it professional.
Keep it professional, guys. I think we can move on. I think that's us covering that story. I think that's done to death now. As we say, like, it's not with great power comes with great responsibility. But if you're sitting there with social media and you've got something to say, by all means say something, and people can either want to listen or not want to listen to you, but it's never it's never a good idea, never cool to just slide into someone's DM, shout abuse or whatever it is, especially these people who halfway through the year will say about when it comes to like mental health day and stuff, and about like how we have to look after each other, how we have to look after each other's mental health. It's people that will scream that at one point, and then the next moment they're saying some really bizarre, hateful things as well online. So let's just really think about what you're going to say before you start posting.
Yep.
We will come back to social media in a minute. I think there's two
do we
stories.
have to?
Well, we're going to come back to two stories in relation to the Sheffield Steelers. One was quite a funny faux pas on Twitter. Sheffield Steelers with a faux pas on social media. What? But we're going to come back to that. But I'm going to move over first off to two stories that I wanted to talk about for whenever we're going to record last week, just because I did want to talk about them. The first one is coming from the league itself. This was obviously the Elite League announcing the start of last week. They were announcing about the new package of statistics that is now live as part of the Elite League games this season, and they've started to use. Have you guys seen this? Have you guys been looking at any of the stuff that the Elite League have been putting together? So the Elite League have put together a new feature where it kind of comes off the back of the playoffs. I think they trialed it out during the playoffs, and I think they trialed it at one of the Belfast Giants games, potentially at the end of the season as well. I think it was maybe the Challenge Cup final. Maybe they tried it as well, where they were trialing the time on ice, which was done at the Challenge Cup final and playoff final weekend. And they are now doing this like expected goals and measuring statistics in relation to percentage likelihood of a specific team in the league winning or a specific team in the game, who's going to win what, that kind of thing, and who's likely to win. We've seen this in the Belfast Giants game. I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is really bizarre because it was like, I think it was like there was 4 minutes left of the game. The Giants were dominating in that game. I think there was like 4-0 up or something like that, and it was like the likelihood of the Giants to win this game 100%. I was like, duh. It's like, what? That's bizarre. But some of the statistics they are going to be able to show is expected goals, heat maps in relation to the shots, updated face-off percentages, that sort of thing, and time on ice. I mean, it's good to have it finally. I know we see this in some of the professional teams around the league, professional leagues around the world. But it's nice to have this going on. However, I was quite surprised. Now, someone within the Elite League can come back to us and kind of confirm if this is exactly how it's being done right across each rink across the whole of the UK. But John, you were saying, in my head, I thought during the Challenge Cup final, I thought that the players must have been wearing some kind of like sensor or something that tells them whenever they go on and off. That's too sophisticated. Supposedly you were saying all it is simply people sitting with the timers, and then when a player goes on, they hit the timer, and then they stop it when the player comes off. Is that
No,
real?
So it is more complicated than that. So during playoffs, I've done it to death. Everyone knows that I was there as media playoffs at the playoff final weekend. Yeah. So I spent a couple of the games, or not even 2 full games. I think I had 1 full game on the first day of games, the not Belfast game, up in the media box. And on one side, the entire row of seats, 2 rows of seats, were taken up with a team of people on iPads. And what they were doing was watching the line changes and tapping on the particular player. Only got a sort of brief little angle view of what they were doing, but they were essentially taking players on and off the ice. So that was how they were doing that stat-based thing. Now, I don't know how they're doing it at all the rinks now. I have been trying to keep an eye as I've gone to games. I did it this weekend past in Glasgow and in Fife, and I've got absolutely no idea how they're doing it. So they may have transitioned over to a sensor package now. I'm not 100% sure, but when you've got Glasgow who don't even have goal line technology and tried to complain about the goal that absolutely should have stood because their netminder kicked the nets off the goal, I find it incredibly hard to believe that those teams are managing a sensor package if they can't get a camera to work that points down at the goal. So honestly, I'm going to say I've got no idea how they're doing it. Whether it's been done via video footage that's been transmitted through to somebody somewhere. EIHL Towers are doing this somehow. Literally no idea.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great to have stats. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. But when you've got like expected win and all that sort of stuff coming up with a very strange percentage, it's maths is a wonderful creature, and it throws up different challenges to different people. So I've literally got no idea.
Yeah, I read the explanation about the expected goals story, and about how the percentages were worked out in relation to like the percentage for the game. And I swear, I obviously the last time, again, given away my age, the last time I think I did algebra was probably early 2000s, and I swear when I read this analogy, I thought to myself, I should have maybe kept a wee eye on my algebra and how to work it out. It was all like X, Y, G lines and all this stuff, and I was like, what are we talking about here? But basically, at the end of the day, they basically calculate how many goals are going in, how many shots are happening at certain dots across the rink, and then it indicates a line that basically says there's a chance here they're going to score, and this is when they're going to score, which I just think is really weird, how it can be that accurate. The other one I did like was that each player will also have a category where it'll tell you how many block shots a player has had, and you'll be able to see which players then have used their body the most, in order to kind of see who's been blocking shots the most, which I thought was quite an interesting one. Any of these anything on the statistics? I know statistics might sound boring, but anything in the statistics that you guys kind of picked out, kind of thought that's worth an eye, it's worth to keep an eye on.
Face-off percentages, definitely huge. You probably can't, it's something that we that are so important, but you're literally having to keep track of them in your own head before. So it's really good, especially things like offensive and defensive wins, because it's you're looking at the possibility of power play goals and things like that, shorthanded goals and stuff. So, but yeah, definitely face-offs.
Yeah, I'm not a massive stats nerd, but to be honest, the one thing that I did like that we saw at playoffs, and I remember we talked about it at the time, and I'm enjoying looking at them now post game, is the shot heat maps. Yeah, they're quite interesting. They give you a real picture of, offensively at least, how a team is set up, whether it's a team that's going to be physical and crash the net, or if it's going to be a team that are more about the setup play and the shots are going to come from the high slot or out on the blue line. So that to me is more interesting than anything else.
And that was going to lead me on to one last question before we moved on from this story. guessing, for us as fans, being able to see these heat maps, being able to see all of these bits and pieces around who's taking block shots, who's going to be on the ice more, who's getting the most face-offs, and whose percentage of face-offs is higher than others. I mean, we're guessing the Giants and the other. I don't know why I just said the Giants, just they're in my head there. I'm guessing the teams across the Elite League, I'm guessing they already had some kind of form of collecting this data so they could see what was going on against other teams, so they could kind of do their homework going into playing against. So Belfast going up against Cardiff, so they have a bit of an idea of how Cardiff been performing over the last, 5 games, whatever it is. But this simply will just kind of help them even more, having the statistics out there that's going to show heat maps. It's going to show. Do you think that's going to be the kind of way they'll work it, or do you think it's just going to be then each team will be like, well, they're doing this, and we'll try and counteract that, so therefore change up their play to kind of. What do you think?
That'll be a way that they will use this data. There's absolutely no way about it. My understanding is that each team was responsible for gathering that data themselves. There's a reason that the often lauded Giant stats team were so important and have been so important to Adam. It's been going through game tape and collecting that data. There was no official collection of that data until now. And the fact that it's been made slightly more official, I don't think it takes away from what the teams will have been doing anyway. They will still have a role for those stats guys in their game tape analysis. So I think it's an extra tool. But what this specifically does is it opens that side of the game to fans. I think this is it's the start of people gaining a greater understanding for the game that's happening in front of them. It's not a case of, oh, they're fast, oh, they hit each other on the boards, oh, that guy just punched that guy in the face. It's looking at the intricacies of the game and bringing you more in-depth information and content and getting an appreciation of, yes, they're moving incredibly fast, but there's a lot of thought goes into what they do.
Agreed.
Couple of comments coming in from Facebook of all places. So the first one's from somebody that we know.
John,
hey,
Megan's wanting to know, with the Flyers scoring their winning shot in the last 2 minutes against Coventry, do you think they deserved the win?
If they scored 1 second before the end of the game, they deserve the win. So yes.
We should say that Megan, you do know Megan quite well, John.
She's my sister-in-law.
So there could be a couple of the McCanns in today to kind of.
I'm sure Megan has dragged her partner, her fiance, in as well. So he's probably listening to this, having absolutely no idea what we're talking about.
Next up, we have another familiar name to the show. He's not on with us tonight, but Aaron throwing in a message there. He just says, with AI and video analysis, there has to be software technology out there to do that these days. And then we've got
he's just fishing for a job with a team.
That's it. Yeah. We've got Neil Braden, first time watching. So thank you very much. And the link shows how to pull the data. So again, there's a link on the article that we've been reading. So yeah, we can have a look at that. Thank you very much. John, we will switch to you. You've got the next story in this period.
Yeah. So this was I think this was the social media, funny social media that you were talking about, Marty. So we had the Sheffield Steelers who went online and somewhat ironically have said, yeah, we're not going to be able to play our Challenge Cup quarter-final at home. Now that raised a few eyebrows because...
Wasn't that playoff?
Oh, sorry, playoffs.
Yeah.
Sorry, playoffs. Their playoff quarter-final at the arena because a boy band is going to play their arena and it's already confirmed. So, sorry, but my heart bleeds for you. And surely, Tony should now be coming on and saying, look, we're just going to forfeit the game. We're going to give 2 points to whoever it is that we happen to be facing that night. But the more interesting point, obviously, is that congratulations to the Steelers on making playoffs, having played, 2-3 league games so far this season. Congratulations, guys. I'm surprised. I don't think yet they've done it, but I don't think they've put the X on their social media accounts yet
to
show that they've qualified.
Not just yet. Yeah, I just thought it was quite funny. It was quite ironic, and I think what was funnier was, and we talked about social media earlier on, but there's a lighthearted part of social media too, where there's people who are able to just kind of jump on straight away and make really just like really funny comment. Like there is people out there who can just kind of put in really non-aggressive, funny comments that are just like ironic comments. And there is ones that you'll just read. And actually, the title of our podcast is because of something I read in the comments section about a story we're going to cover in the penalty box segment. And I mean, there is some really funny things. I just think the comment section underneath when the Steelers put this up, the comment section underneath about the irony of the fact that there is a game that has to be cancelled or can't be played in their arena. It's not cancelled. They'll probably have to try and switch to somewhere else. But
they'll go to Ice Sheffield.
The irony of the fact that it was a boy band and the whole stink that was caused about the boy band, the famous boy band situation in Belfast a number of years ago. It was pretty ironic. I think it was One Direction were playing in Belfast, and I think that was the whole thing around games being cancelled.
And I believe this time around it's Take That. So. I think whoever they happen to be playing in that game should take those 2 points and run with them.
Boom, boom. And did I read that the Steelers played in the Arnold Schwarzenegger Arena?
Yep.
Did they not put up a really weird tweets?
Yeah.
But it wasn't even like a spelling mistake. They actually tagged him. So I don't know what was going on like that day. I don't know who had the Steelers account phone that day, but whoever was doing it, I think I sent you guys the meme of Homer. It's like the fingers you have used to tweet are too fat. That must have led to an incredibly confused Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, to be fair, he probably gets tagged in a lot of stuff, either randomly or by accident or just on purpose by complete randomers trying to tag him and stuff. Look at me saying that Arnold Schwarzenegger runs his own X account as well. The likelihood is so slim. But I imagine a bunch of folk from Sheffield commenting on something below where he'd been tagged. That would be very confusing. He's a man of a certain age as well.
He is indeed. Guys, the last story for this period before we move into our penalty box segment, I just wanted to quickly touch upon because this is something I was going to mention on our last recording, which we didn't get a chance to do. And this maybe is just from the start of from about second week of September, about the middle of September, since our last recording anyway. And that was the announcement that the Elite League will continue with their Pride celebrations for the 2023-2024 season, and they've confirmed the dates for that, and it'll be the traditional Pride weekend celebrations. This season will take place in January time again, so the 27th and 28th of January. Cardiff Devils will organise their own game as part of their continued support and standing partnership with LGBT in Wales. I suppose it's an important. It's an interesting story in that we know the NHL this season have kind of said that they're not going to be doing the traditional kind of campaigns that they've done in the past, that including their Hockey is for Everyone campaign. That's not something that's going to happen this season. The Elite League continuing with that is obviously strong support for that within this league. That'll continue, and it's going to continue again this season. There's been a lot of media attention around trans rights and a lot of stuff this week as well coming. And we don't want to get political, but there's been a lot of stuff this week coming from the powers that be in the UK. So I guess at this time it's probably a good point, the fact that this is still going to happen in the league.
Yeah, I'm more impressed that the Elite League has decided to maintain this when the NHL at the back end of their last regular season announced that they would be stopping all of these kind of events because of the sort of media furore around players not taking part and all the rest of it. So they've essentially stopped all of their theme nights, I think they called it, or their one-off jersey nights and all the rest of it. They've pretty much stopped all of them. The Elite League, however, and we're going to talk about it later on as well, about theme nights, but the Elite League carrying on. Theme nights are one thing, but this, I think, is really important. It sends a really important message, and I'm glad to see the Elite League, do you know what? For once, leading the way.
Yeah. Agreed.
The US are obviously in a bit of a sorry state in general. It's a bit of a more of a divided USA than United, and there's a lot of that up and down different states with very different opinions, whether you agree or don't agree with them. It's not a single voice anymore from the country, so it's they can't seem to find their way out of any of these big questions or agree on anything right now. So.
Agreed. Guys, I'm going to move on and go into our penalty box. We do have a few stories to cover, both within the Elite League and also in the NIHL. So we'll get swiftly moved on to our penalty box segment. You forgot there was a penalty box segment video, didn't you? I bet you did.
I thought there was music for it. I don't know why. It's like that Mandela effect, whenever you... There's no. Where's the music?
No, don't worry. There's no music. There wasn't supposed to play any music. Don't worry. We are just going to quickly talk about DOPS. They are back. We didn't know how long it would be before DOPS would show their head in the Elite League. And actually, it turned out that DOPS showed their heads right from basically game one or first weekend. Although this is kind of an older story, I suppose, and obviously the penalty has been set already and it's been done. But during game one between Sheffield and the Coventry Blaze on 22nd of September 2023, Coventry Blaze player Blake Thompson was fined for boarding during that game. There was no game penalty, but it was a fine, and that's where the name of this title came from in terms of Lucozade in a packet of Monster Munch. Someone said, I think, John, actually, I think you started a conversation around, and we've had this conversation before. Again, they've said a fine has been put in place. We're not going to tell you what that fine is. We're not going to tell you how much that fine is. We're not going to tell you where that fine goes. Same old story, same old. Still not being any clarity around that. And underneath your comments and a couple of others, I think you had started a conversation and someone underneath the comments had wrote this as a comment. And apologies for not remembering who the user was that put in this comment, but it got me so much. It just made me laugh. And that's why I thought that's the perfect title for this podcast. I mean, no surprise there. The only thing that I would want to talk about coming out of this story, which is kind of a darker, kind of worrying kind of thing that happened, was that after the hit and the fine that Thompson received, the Sheffield Steelers, I think it was the Star the day after, ran a story which included about I think it was it? Hang on, let me just get it up here. It was Kevin Tansey, who basically came out, who's the enforcer for the team after the opening day, and he came out and said, I'm not going to forget it. I just want him to know that I know who he is and I remember who he is later in the season. I mean, it's is there a place for that in terms of, should the league be kind of clamping down on the fact that, is there a potential here for a future game? I know they'll say it's a bit of spicy and it'll bring a bit of draw to the game and people are like, oh, what's going to happen? But should this be happening? Should this be allowed to be put out on in a newspaper or a media outlet in terms of saying, oh, he better look out for himself kind of thing?
First of all, it's ragtop journalism at its finest for a very start. I know it's a well-known journalist who covers Sheffield about 4 times a week. It's through Bob Westerdale through the Sheffield Star. But to be honest, the bigger issue here is what media training are the Steelers giving to their players. Surely that is something that should never have even been said to a journalist. These guys are clearly not being briefed properly. And I hope it continues, because I actually really, really hope that I'm going to get to interview a Steelers player at some point very soon. So, and I hope they say something controversial, and I hope it blows up and we get all the mentions off the back of it. But the issue that this creates is, if something is to happen, say we end up with a Fretter Galakos situation, we end up with a sucker punch, we end up with a leg being kicked out in self-defense, or whatever, or we end up with a Joe Grimaldi situation where he just takes any piece of hard equipment he's got on and tries to murder someone with it. This sets a precedent. So really, if it comes to DOPS or it comes to supplementary discipline, then do they take this into account? Is this on the player's record? My guess is it won't be, but my feeling is it should be.
It's a strange thing to see in this day and age. We all would have seen it back in the sort of the dark days of the Elite League, when it was literally just guys like Jason Ruston and McMorrow for the Giants, that were just goons for hire, and couldn't do anything else, and you would expect something like that from whenever the league was going through that sort of phase. To me, the league's got so skilled and so professional. Well, you sort of think that there's no place for that sort of thing anymore. And surely, if off the back, if there is an altercation with the same player by the player that made the statement, that has to go down as headhunting. It's like premeditated attempt danger, sort of things like that. There, even if it's a legal hit, you're going, you went out there to do something other than play your game.
Yep. That's exactly what I thought. When that was put out, I was kind of saying, if there's genuinely clean hit in that game, and coming from both parties, how does he defend himself in thinking that it's not a premeditated type thing, and how does the league not look at that as a premeditated thing? But I guess we'll see when they play against each other again, and see if there is a remembrance, and see if he does remember him or not. But as you say, John, we'll keep an eye out for that, and hopefully it gives us
a bit of pantomime
later. Could be. You're right. You're right.
Look, do you know what? Do you know what? It's two teams that aren't the Giants. I hope they go hell for leather after each other, and I hope 10 guys on each team get banned for the rest of the season. Go for it, guys.
I'm going to look at the other two DOPS decisions that have been made from this past weekend. So this weekend just passed, so this is these were put out on the 1st of October. So I think this was because they both had games on Sunday night, both Dundee and also Glasgow Clan. So the first one is for Johnny Walker. Which I stand by. It's the best name for a player to go into a Scottish team. Like, I just think great name. But Johnny Walker was assessed for an illegal check to the head against Storm forward Will Marchant. The video, obviously, if you've had a chance to look at it, hopefully you guys have, kind of gives an indication that Marchant makes play on the puck, passing to a teammate, and after the puck is gone, Walker initiates a high hit, making the head the main point of contact. He has received I guess a fine, and was suspended for 2 games as a result of that hit to the head. Have you guys both had a look at the hit? Have you looked at the story that DOPS put out? John, we'll come to you. You're nodding your head.
The Johnny Walker hit is disgusting. For this to be 2 games is brutal. This should be a much bigger ban. We talked about headhunting. That's the definition of what he's done here. He skates with intent at the player, and as he approaches him, he lifts his body, he lifts his arm, and to be honest, first point of contact, if it's not the upper arm, it's the elbow. There is a lot going on here. That is a willful intent to injure. That's 6 games, 8 games, could be more. It's not 2 games, and I don't care that Johnny Walker for the Stars won't have a previous history with the Elite League. What the league have said here is, you target someone's head, and I can't remember if they said that an injury was there was an injury on the play. It doesn't matter if there's an injury in the play or not. With direct contact to the head, look at the way it's been treated in rugby at the minute. You've got the Rugby World Cup going on. Any direct contact to the head is treated as a straight red card, essentially. Straight and further review. They've got the review period, but whatever. We're talking here about supplementary discipline. We're talking here what happens after the game. The league have to take a stance on this, that is shocking. That sets a precedence.
The scary thing is his own head movement, Johnny Walker's own head movement. He clocks him, he turns, eyes him, then hits him. And I know that we're seeing it in slow motion and all that jazz, but That happens about 5 strides before the hit.
Yep.
He's winding that up. Now, you could be saying he's winding up for a check, but still, it's a player a player that's not in the play. He doesn't have possession of the puck. He wasn't a legal check, and then he follows through with a head check. Like, it's definitely more than two games in my opinion.
The other thing is, look at the way that Merchant goes down as well.
Oh, yeah.
The way that Merchant goes down to the ice is brutal.
The momentum that spins him and everything is...
The momentum carries him. The way that his outside leg, as he falls, that could be a lower body injury, could be a result of that, let alone a potential head injury, let alone if he knocks him out, then he's falling to the ground unprotected, he's not going to break his own fall, could hit his head. There's a lot going on here. Like, us and a lot of other people talk about the fact that these guys are all doing this for a job and nobody should go to work and leave injured.
Yep.
And for Walker to do that, that's willful intent to me, and that needs to be dealt with much, much harsher by the league. I think I think this is the first DOPS disaster of the season.
And will there be many to come? Good question. Guys, the other one from this weekend as well, as I already mentioned, was the suspension of Glasgow Clan player.
Do you know what, Anthony? I said it, 10 guys banned for the season. Look, let's just do it. Let's try it. It seems to work elsewhere.
As I was saying, we have the other one from this past weekend is Dyson Stevenson for the Glasgow Clan, was assessed a fighting instigator major and mandatory game misconduct during the final 5 minutes of the game between the Cardiff Devils and the Glasgow Clan. Therefore, he has received a automatic 1-game suspension for this. It's cut and dry. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I thought I had seen somewhere, like, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was a change to that rule this season where it said something about the bench coach for the team will also receive some form of disciplinary action if their player starts a fight in the last 5 minutes. Now, I don't know if I'm dreaming that. I don't know if someone can maybe clarify that. Someone out there in hockey world can clarify that. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere, and I thought we had a conversation about that during the off season, and I remember saying to myself, "Oh, they'll have to really look after the fact that they're not going to let their players go overboard," because I think it was something like the coach was going to get a mandatory 1-game suspension, or there was something about not being able to control their bench. But I can't find it, and whenever I tried to link onto that Elite League casebook and look into that, it just goes to a dead link. So I couldn't even read it today. Anybody? Am I completely insane?
It rings a bell with me. I don't know exactly where I think I've seen it, but it does ring a bell. But let's just take this and look at the previous one. Like, this is basically an admin penalty to stop fights leading into the final minutes and getting out of hand as the game comes to a close, and that gets 1 game, and the big check to the head gets 2. You know, there's a strange disparity there.
I don't know. John, were you doing a quick frantic Google search there? What did I hear?
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves. I've got the game book, but it's. Do you know what? It's a horrendous document, and I already can't be bothered. So I'm just going to close it again.
But it'll obviously be somewhere down around Rule 46. So if that helps in any way, shape, or form.
Do you know what it does? It does. You telling me the number. So you know what? Talk amongst yourself for a second.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of these style penalties. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of the fighting into the sport anymore. But I do think that these are a bit of a weird penalty. You know, that sort of, just because it happens in certain times, you know, it's not. It's a bit weird. I don't know if it's something I like. I think it's just adds. It doesn't add anything to the sport, if you know what I mean. If you're going to do that, then you should be basically increasing the penalty in general for fighting, because it's just a bit strange. And then the instigator and aggressor, you know, it's a judgment call half the time.
Agreed.
So on the game book that I've got here, there's nothing about additional discipline for coaches.
Okay, so I made that up completely. Apologies. I genuinely thought I'd seen somewhere, but yeah, I'll go back and see if I can find what I was thinking about. But anyway, we'll move on. We'll continue on. John, the next couple are over to you. I think it's from the world of NIHL. So it's good to see Anthony's there because he might want to jump in as well. But yeah, there's a couple of big ones there.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into all of the EIHA dots. So we talked last podcast or the podcast before about the rebrand of NIHL DOPS. And they've got their lovely new Twitter, which makes following this sort of stuff really easy. And do you know what? Actually, even simpler than what the Elite League does, they actually put their case video on Twitter or X or whatever, so you don't actually even have to click into the website to find it all. You can just watch the video straight there. So the couple that I want to bring up, they were at the very start of the season, and these were Patrick Grigors of the Billingham Stars was banned or suspended for 12 games for boarding. This, to me, of the two of these, is the more serious one, guys. I don't know if you've seen the video yet. I've vamped and waffled long enough, I think, to let you watch this video. That's a brutal hit. Is like unsuspecting opponent. I think that one's fair enough. I think with the tier system and the penalty system that they have, I think that's fair enough. And I haven't seen anything about anything being appealed here. Quite honestly, I don't know what the appeals process is down there with NIHL DOPS. If it's anything like the EIHL, it's going to be shrouded in mystery. But yeah, I think fair enough.
Yeah.
Seems
that way.
It's tough.
Yep. So that's on Twitter. If anyone wants to have a look at it and see what you make of the hit itself and whether you agree that it was a 12-game ban. And actually, if one of you could do me a solid, actually, and throw up the comment that's just come in from Anthony on YouTube there, that would be really good. I did know about this, sorry, and I didn't actually mention it, that the hit actually caused a serious injury on the play, fractured cheekbone. Wasn't aware that Grigors had a history of bad hits, so like you said, Marty, it's nice to have Anthony in the background here. An elephant never forgets, and a Grigors never learns. So, and I do remember seeing something online about this, about asking for clarification as to why it was 12, and I think that was forthcoming. And Anthony, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were involved in that conversation on social media, so we've definitely got the right person listening or watching in currently as well. The other ban then that I thought was worth bringing up was the Witness Wild player Damarny James. Marty, aren't you glad that I'm doing the players' names? So this was a Tier 2 10-game ban for checking from behind. So guys, again, I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at this one.
Yep.
I think it's another fair enough one. I think it's very clearly checking from behind. The player's in a vulnerable position. He's along the boards at the benches as well, so you don't even have that additional potential protection, which we talked about, that hit in Fife, of the plexi potentially giving you that extra level of safety. But yeah, it's a bad hit, and it's also needless. It feels like it's behind the play as well. It feels like the play has moved on, and that's an easy hit to just not make. So I think the NIHL DOPS have got these are two serious bans, but I think they've got them 100% right, actually, in this case. Any thoughts from you guys?
No, I agree. Both look, from the video reviews and the video that was shown, both look quite, like, the hits just are strong. Like, they're really, like, incredible hits. That boarding call particularly is just so, like, blatant, and it looks like a harsh one that you can tell how someone got injured from that. And that second one, there's definitely like a knee rise from behind. It does look like he's been taken out quite targeted anyway. Yeah, both brutal. I think they're right. I think Anthony put up one more comment. He's just saying the James hit is a frustrating one. The kid is super talented, potentially in the next wave. The hit is bad though. Though the numbers needlessly. Guys, I think that's it for period one. Does anybody else have anything before we move on?
Nope.
No? Well, with that then, what we'll do is we'll round off our period one of hockey and we'll move swiftly into our period two of hockey.
Hello, I'm back. Doing period two. It's been a while. Thank you for holding down the fort and making sure that that other people continue to do the research. Because obviously I haven't done any more. With everything going on, it's been a bit chaotic, and I'm back to form. So, so I will fire it over to Marty to get started. Because I did like reading the first one.
The first story is obviously we know about the story that was going on coming out of Ottawa last year. A lot of talk around the purchase and the buyover. No, the buyout. No,
sale.
Yeah,
no. Well, it was a straight. It wasn't a buyout. It was a straight sale.
Yeah.
So
sale.
the previous owner passed away, and his estate were in the process of selling the team and
so
the franchise.
As we know, investors came in and purchased the Senators for $950 million.
Not the one we were hoping for.
No, it wasn't. But still, it was a good move. And obviously, it's a strengthening for Ottawa. A lot of fans were very excited about the fact that new owners coming in and were very vocal about the franchise and about how to kind of improve the franchise moving forward, getting it back on a foot where they were dominant and getting it back onto that kind of winning ways and kind of the whole build up around it. One of the other big things that was talked about at the time of purchase was that Andler, who is one of the lead members of that purchasing group, had stated that one of his biggest things that he wanted to do for the Senators franchise was to build a new arena in downtown Ottawa. The estimate for a new arena will cost around about the same amount as it cost to pretty much purchase the Sens. It would be £900 million to build a new purpose-built state-of-the-art arena.
Do you know what? Just round it up to Ottawa. $1 billion. Just round it up to $1 billion.
The current arena has been running since 1996. It is in the suburbs of Ottawa, and I think the whole idea was trying to find somewhere more that was central focused, more maybe kind of mainstream or areas around Ottawa, somewhere that was more central. Not that it's not easy to get to, but somewhere that was maybe not 30 minutes outside the central part.
I'll come in. The Canadian Tire Centre is nowhere near the city. I was a few years ago. I was in Canada, and this was one of the arenas that I went to. It is not easy to get to unless you're driving. We had to get a couple of different buses. Now, admittedly, we ended up taking 3 buses, but that could have been 2, except our first bus actually hit someone. So we actually did have to change because he kind of had to stay and talk to the police. I want to qualify with the fact that the guy was fine, and it was actually me and Catherine who gave the guy first aid after the bus hit him. Catherine actually got interviewed by the RCMP after we got home over the phone. Which was interesting, but yeah, the Canadian Tire Centre is more or less in the middle of nowhere. It would be kind to say that it's in an industrial estate because it really isn't. It has an enormous car park around it, so it's got that going for it, but what it doesn't have is that city feeling. It doesn't have that link to its city. Do you know what? They are the Renfrew clan of the NHL. Is what it actually feels like. I don't know what the suburb is called that they're in, but it certainly isn't Ottawa. It's not Ottawa itself. It's a really, really nice arena. Don't get me wrong. It's an NHL arena. It is outstanding as a sporting venue, but it struggles with where it is. It also struggles with the team that play there.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like anybody, any fan, whenever a new ownership takes over, and we've been there as Belfast Giants fans. Cardiff Devils have been there with Todd Kelman and his group taking over there in Cardiff. And most recently, the Glasgow Clan haven't been bought over, and exciting things happening up there in Glasgow. I know these are slightly smaller scale in the likes of Ottawa, but you know when an ownership comes in and states from day one that he wants to make sure that he listens to fans and what the fans think, he made a statement that basically said the most important thing is what's important for our fans. If I can increase the fan experience, that's what I'm here for. So probably the fans will help me dictate where the best place will be for our future home. We have federal buildings that are now empty. We have the NCC with the best piece of land that's available for development right in the major heart of the city. And there's also the building that they're currently in, the Canadian Tire Centre, which is also an option. So there's 3 options there. But it'll be interesting to see if anything does transpire from that in this coming season. And just like always, we will keep a wee eye on that. And if there is any more progress with that, I'm sure there might be progress quicker with their developments for their arena than a certain other team in the NHL, which we know has hit a stumbling block over the summer in relation to their planning permission and stuff. So
Just
we'll see where that goes.
Just on Anthony's comment, you're 100% right. It's Gatineau, but while physically it may not be that far out, it was easily 40 minutes from CBD. He's put another comment in there saying it's Kanata. It was one of those. I remember those 2 being on the buses. It was easily 40 minutes out of central Ottawa, because you were dealing with inner city traffic trying to get out there and then coming back in, because the buses are so limited about getting back into the city. The city doesn't actually put on a whole pile of buses to get people back into the city afterwards. There were only a handful of buses, and they were standing all the way down back into the city. It was mental.
Fort Lauderdale for Florida Panthers is the same, by the way. It's out in the arse end of nowhere, because they're branded as a sort of Miami team, and they're in Fort Lauderdale, which is like 2 hours outside of Miami.
Here,
and
do you know what could be worse? Could be in the mullet.
The mullet, yeah.
Neil Braden's put us a comment just saying it's the equivalent of flying into Paris with Ryanair, thinking you're flying into Central Paris. It's exactly the same as Germany. When you're flying into Germany,
sorry,
you're like,
sorry. Do you know what it's like? It's like flying into Belfast International.
Oh dear, that was just to go back to the fact your comment there, John, about the Renfrew clan. That was the first time I've ever drove myself to that arena from where I was staying in Glasgow, and yeah, I was like,
yeah. See, you were staying in Glasgow, and then you drove to Renfrew to go and see the clan.
The one thing I will say is the parking was brilliant, like free parking. It was great. You could get right up there. It was brilliant. I have to say that was it. And getting out of that car park was fantastic as well. But when I was driving, and even when I was driving back to the hotel afterwards, I was thinking to myself, am I nearly there? I was really like, I've done it so many times in taxis, and I don't think maybe I've taken it on board when I've done it in taxis previously. But this time when I'm driving, Dave, I may have taken beverages previously. But this,
like me and John getting our trams home.
Yeah.
Remember, that's the best travel home I've ever had, and people tell me it didn't happen.
There was no tram. Tram didn't exist in Germany. There was no tram.
I know. I'm not even. There was a tram.
There was a tram.
It was the tram. Anyway,
I even remember the ding dings, like whenever it starts off,
Look, I remember the ding dings. I'm pretty sure I remember buying a ticket and having it because Germany, you do the little stampy thing, and I'm pretty sure I remember doing that as well.
I love.
Do you know what my favorite trip home after a game was? That same trip, that taxi the next night.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna die.
Getting there,
genuinely thought I was gonna die.
We got air going over that bridge. That guy was insane. I think that guy might have been drunker than we were.
Before we move on, the one thing I will say is that from your memories around that in terms of the tram, genuinely what you're thinking of, and I think you're getting yourself confused, is we used a tram to get from the airport to the train station. And we used a tram at that point.
I got a tram. I got a tram that went past that submarine, and I'm telling you, I got a tram that went past that submarine.
What submarine? Was that a battleship?
No, submarine.
That was the last surviving U-boat.
Yeah.
There you go. There we go. We don't remember anything about that. Anyway, let's move. Let's move on, Dave. Thanks.
Organized chaos whenever I'm looking after the running. Right. Well, we'll go to. Let's go down to John for the next one.
Right. This is a little bit more serious, guys. Michigan hockey this week have suspended a player after video footage emerged in Ann Arbor of a young male spraying anti-Semitic propaganda and images over a Jewish resource centre. Now, this broke on the local CBS station. The local police put out a pile of messaging asking for information on if anyone could identify the individual in the video. It's since come out that the person was in fact a member of the University of Michigan's men's ice hockey program. Johnny Druskinis of Plymouth, Michigan, was removed from the team following a violation of what Michigan University have said is a violation of team rules on September 29th, so just last week. I believe it's also come out that the accomplice, if you like, that he had, there was a young woman was with him at the time as well, was a member of the Michigan women's lacrosse team. However, the news to date is that she has not been removed from the lacrosse team. I believe there's a conversation going on that she was there, but may not have taken part in what Druskinis did. Guys, it's not great to see this happening, but do the university deserve to be applauded for how they've handled the situation?
I think yes, obviously. I think they've handled it the way they need to handle it. This is it kind of just harkens back to the story. I think it was the end of last season where the young players, I think it was a nightclub. From
disabled lady.
I think it was the Philadelphia Flyers. It was the Philadelphia Flyers GM. I think it was his son with the disabled student and throwing the wheelchair down the stairs, and it was caught obviously on video in the nightclub video, the cameras. I mean, these young men who are playing for these major teams, college teams, with future prospects of wanting to kind of maybe progress in a future career within these kind of areas. So obviously mainstream sports and this one, ice hockey, in terms of the you would imagine his ambition is to kind of move on from university, college level up to semi-pro or at least pro level. And I mean, when you do things like this and you think you're going to what is your thought? First off, you shouldn't have done it, but what's your thought process in relation to, your future career prospects when you do something as stupid as this?
It's probably just worth noting as well that the Ann Arbor Police Department have said that the male suspect was responsible for spray painting a homophobic slur as well as male genitalia. And I'll correct what I said earlier. The female suspect spray painted her initials. So you can only assume that there was some drink involved with this one, because you don't spray paint your initials somewhere unless you've had a couple of jars and think it's a good idea. However, that being said, the Jewish Resource Centre has chosen not to proceed with charges. So the police have now concluded their investigation. The Resource Centre have said that as far as they're concerned, the students aren't bad people, and they certainly don't need to have their lives ruined. While they made a poor choice, they've sincerely apologised, and we have high confidence they won't repeat such actions ever again. So they're clearly being the bigger person in the situation. They're taking the high ground, and I think they need to be applauded for that. But Marty, you're absolutely right. The ramifications. This is a kid who may or may not have had or may still have a great career in hockey ahead of him, but this will hang over him. Dave, we've seen different teams make decisions around signings because of the past history of players. Look at Glasgow last year as a prime example. Do you think this follows this guy?
Yeah, this will be a black mark on his career for forever. He'll not be. He'll always be known as that guy who spray painted the penis outside a Jewish resource center. And it's going to be tough. He's going to have to go into even if it's not hockey, he's going to have to go into every job interview and explain that.
I mean, in a past life, before I work where I currently work in the organization I currently work for, in a past life I worked in student services. I worked for a university in Belfast, one of the major universities in Belfast, and I worked there for over about 7 years. Probably I worked within that, and I worked in the university working with student discipline at one point in relation to working alongside students who were, drinks in, wits out, that kind of idea, and the amount of young people who. Well, that's
how do you think we met?
That's how we met. That's how. Well, no, John.
Actually, do you know what? Actually, that's not far off how we met.
We met because John was being a good boy and actually coming up to touting someone else, but we'll get into that.
I know that's not true. Don't even. I was being the good boy because. Not even. I'm not even going into it because I could put a doctor's reputation at risk. I don't know him anymore, but that's at least what he was training to be at the time.
But and I just remember, I would be doing up campaigns throughout the year. One of the big things I would do would be like student campaigns around, behavior and everything else. And anybody who knows Northern Ireland and knows St. Patrick's Day and knows about the history of St. Patrick's Day and a certain student area within Belfast known as the Holy Lands, it's been well known that over the previous years there's been a number of issues in relation to antisocial behavior and just students being students, just really stupid on drink. And it harkens to me whenever I see stories like this. It just takes me back to when I worked in Queens and the amount of young people that I'd be working alongside, and I'm just saying to them, that one stupid little mistake that you've made tonight, or that silly thing that you've done right now, that's going to haunt you now in your career moving forward. Because when they think like, oh well, sure, how when's anyone going to find out about that? Well, you went through a disciplinary procedure within the university. It's going to be, it is going to follow you, and people are going to know about it. It's not you can hide it. But in this case, for these young people, I mean, it's hitting mainstream media, it's hitting mainstream news articles. They're potentially going to be young people who want to become public facing as well. And yeah, I don't. And I know when we're young, we do silly things and we don't think about the consequences at the time. But this is just another level. Whenever you see things like this, you see these kind of stories.
Yep.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Okay, I think it's our final story, and it's about the whole story is about the Coyotes playing in an NHL-sized arena.
Well, yeah, and I know this story. I know this story might seem a bit old now, but it's only about a week or so old. But this is just because I did want to have a quick chat about and I remember whenever we had I'm going to pick on Anthony here again from Spanners on the Wall when we had him on our show. I think 2 shows ago, we were having a conversation around hockey in the off season and everything else, and he had mentioned about Australia and about Australian hockey and about how you could go about watching Australian hockey and how exciting it was and everything else. But the NHL this year, as part of their preseason, as we know, every year the NHL plays an NHL Global Series, in which they take NHL on the road and go around the world and play different locations. So we've seen places like Sweden, we've seen places like Germany, we've seen where else? We've seen Norway, I think, in previous years, and this year they've made their way down to Melbourne in the preseason, and this is the first time that the NHL went down that direction. Basically it was a sellout crowd of 13,000. Where the Coyotes opened up the preseason with a 5-3 win in the arena there in Melbourne, and that was against the LA Kings, I should say. And as David joked around, at least the Coyotes get to play in a large arena, like larger than their own home, but they played a preseason in a game an arena that was larger than their own home. But I suppose one of the big things about it was, and I think this was just really like, I get frustrated sometimes when I read articles like this, and this has come from the NHL itself. Like, this article was written by someone, and it just seemed very, like, almost like you've went to a country that maybe, okay, it's not maybe mostly associated with ice hockey, but you pander to the point where you're kind of like, how do they know how to react to an ice hockey game? Like, there were things like there said things like they oohed and ahed in the right locations and and everything else. Whenever certain things happened on the ice, they seemed to really know their stuff. I'm like, yeah, of course they're going to know their stuff like anyone else. They're watching the NHL. They've obviously have 13,000 people who are NHL fans who are coming into an NHL game. It's not like they're going to go to a long day game and be like, oh, I don't really know what I'm coming to watch here. But the main thing about it, main thing to take away from it is obviously that it was a massive success. Obviously, huge turnout for them down in the Southern Hemisphere, and I guess just another growth area for them in the future. I guess, and I suppose that's always a strong what they try to do with this global series to try and build their I suppose their they're trying to, I suppose, build their whole appeal right across the world. But guys, did you see any of those stories, or did you see any parts of those games or anything?
I didn't see that. Anthony put up another piece there. Just at this stage, you might as well just jump on. He's contributed more to this podcast than I did, and he's So to make sure you check out Hockey Hype Australia. And it gives you an Australian point of view of this entire global series.
Yeah, no, it was again, it's just building up, and we hope to see one day that that the NHL Global Series makes its way across.
13 years ago.
Well, yeah, 13. Yeah, Boston Bruins wasn't part of the Global Series.
No.
I think they were on their way to the Global Series, and they had a wee stop off in Belfast to play the Belfast Select team. And we hope that there's an announcement made, and maybe. There's talk maybe another announcement of maybe something happening, another announcement coming this year, and maybe it is something to do with NHL, maybe not, I don't know. But even if it was an NHL Global Series that happened in the UK somewhere, even like somewhere larger like Nottingham or Sheffield or whatever it might be, with one of the larger rinks and larger arenas, we know ourselves will be there in a heartbeat. So hopefully we'll see the Global Series in the UK soon. Dave, that's me.
Yeah, I think that if I'm right, that's everything.
Can I throw one thing on just while it's in my head, and I meant to say it earlier on. I really should have said it during period one. Anthony's obviously jumped on here. He's in our comments flat out here. Want to say congratulations to him, because last night he... do we say that he started his EIHL career with us?
I'm saying yes.
He's suggested otherwise on his socials, but last night he stepped in and was commentating on the Guildford-Manchester game. Being totally honest with you, Anthony, didn't buy the webcast, didn't watch it. However, from the highlights that I've seen, and especially the OT winner, congratulations,
yeah, great
Anthony.
Job.
Great job. You've been reflective of your performance on social media today. Really, really hope they give you another opportunity.
Agreed.
And remember us whenever you go viral and go bigger than us.
Come back and speak to your friends when you make it big.
Anthony there was saying I didn't buy it either. You're fine. We have to keep remember we're still doing this as a podcast. We need to read out these comments. I can't have to keep reminding myself. Okay, Dave, you happy enough? We move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Great. Let's move on to period 3.
Period 3 is our general Knocky News. Knocky News is where we throw anything and everything else in the world of hockey that we don't think fits neatly into Period 1 or Period 2, or we just think that Period 1 and 2 have got far too much in them, so we want to throw something into Period 3. Marty, you are desperately typing away here and I think deleting our first story, so I'm going to move swiftly out. There's on the fly editing there, the consummate professional. Guys, we've talked about rink development. We've looked at it from a major cityscape like Ottawa, looking at multiple locations for these NHL franchises. Why don't we take it to slightly smaller scale? Why don't we have a look at Dundonald Ice Bowl and a potential ice rink that might have a couple of GP surgeries in it as well? Guys, this is the news that Dundonald Ice Bowl finally, Dundonald International Ice Bowl. Dundonald International Ice Bowl is finally getting its long-awaited multi-million-pound redevelopment. So just last week, Lisburn and Castlereagh City Council finally gave the green light to a £52 million investment project over the next 3 years. Money is coming through from a multitude of sources. The council, the Department for Levelling Up, the Housing and Communities Fund has put up money as well. And the council, I think, will fill the gap with what's left alongside what I'm sure will be some corporate sponsorship with whoever's going to end up running things like the ice rink and the other concessions that will be there. The redevelopment is aiming to have a state-of-the-art leisure facility with an Olympic-sized ice rink, a 24-lane bowling alley, a gym, community rooms, restaurants, and a coffee shop. And I believe it will also house the health centre and GP surgeries and stuff, which it was originally designed to host as well, as part of the sort of council and NHS investment into the area. Guys, it's great to look at an ice rink being redeveloped. We know that in some areas ice rinks are falling into disrepair, that rinks are closing. We've seen what happened in the Isle of Wight. We've seen what Anthony's had to go through with the Bison and with Planet Ice and the local council there. This is the other side of the coin, isn't it? This is investment in leisure. It's investment in sport. And as Belfast Giants fans, we get the added bonus that this is investment really in our team because we use Dundonald as our training facility when the arena's not available.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long awaited, I suppose. As you mentioned, we've been kind of waiting for years on improvements to the facility. And while it's still it's dated, it's an older building and it still serves purpose in terms of what it does. We use it. Obviously, the Giants use it on a regular basis for their training, as you mentioned, John. We also have recreational teams playing there. Obviously they're late on in the night because obviously that's just the only time they can play. Is obviously nice time is maybe after 10:30 at night, but it's still used for youth development. It's been used for everything else. So to have this new state-of-the-art facility being announced and a new state-of-the-art plant and ice rink being announced as part of this planning deal and this I suppose going forward, it's exciting. It's really exciting for East Belfast. It's really exciting for Dundonald. It's exciting for Belfast in general, just to have the International Ice Bowl, I suppose, improve to the point where it's going to bring in more people. It's great. And I like the fact that there was a bit of concern around what's going to happen in relation to the current ice plant and the current ice rink in relation to this development, and will it impact the ability to use the rink and the pad. But they've said that they'll continue using the building as is, and it must be a new site they're moving the Dundonald Ice Bowl.
They're going across the road.
Across.
The big empty space
where the entertainment
beside it.
Yeah. So again, there's lots going on up there. It's a busy entertainment complex right beside it. Cinema, restaurants, and everything else. It's a really great area to go to. And I think this development is going to be, it's an exciting time. And as you say, it's going to, for the Belfast Giants as well, it can only be good things. Obviously, give them a new state-of-the-art ice rink to practice on whenever the SSC isn't available. So, yeah, good to see.
Huge. It's definitely a huge win. The Dundonald International Ice Bowl has been sort of a cornerstone of that Castlereagh Council for a long time, and for years it was I don't know if it still is, but for years it was the largest visitor attraction in Northern Ireland, and it being completely council owned and operated was a win for our local community and for hockey in Northern Ireland. I know that we're sort of behind the ball when it comes to, because it's the only one we have, but we still managed to churn out a few players, and we've managed to churn out a few players that are really good and are playing about now. So they're obviously doing something right, and long may it continue. And I hope that the council continue to operate it without having to bring in a franchise like Planet Ice, because the council have done a great job in the 37 years in operation. So,
yeah.
My one question to just pose to you guys, and this is obviously we don't know any inside. Actually, we just basically don't know anything about very much, to be honest, when it comes to all this sort of stuff. And I mean ice hockey in general. The fact that we're doing a podcast is just incredible. But the Odyssey Trust have on multiple occasions talked about a second ice pad within the Odyssey family, if you like. We've heard various different ideas of where it would go, either into the derelict land beside the Citibank building, into half of the car park, with a multi-story car park being built in its on the other half to make up for the lost spaces. Do you think this development puts that at risk, or do you think the Odyssey Trust will continue pushing on with the idea that they have a permanent, probably a smaller, maybe even a half-size pad that goes into that area to give things like youth development more ice time, to give the Belfast Giants, the junior Giants, potentially even things like sled hockey, a more stable home? And with that being said, obviously the Giants are a major constituent part of why Dundonald and Lisburn and Castlereagh Council have decided to fork up the money, because the Giants add value to putting this new building in place, because the flagship hockey team of the city use that as a training facility. I'm guessing. Do we think, is there any impact, Marty?
Do you know what? I guess, I think we don't know where those plans are. We don't know how far we don't know where those plans are sitting. We don't know how far on those plans are. We've talked about it. You've talked about it, John. Those plans, there's no secret that those plans are out there, and those plans have been put in to kind of get permission to kind of do that kind of work. We know that I think even Robert Fitzpatrick himself on previous occasions when he's done interviews and he's done fan conversations in the arena, and he's been on the official podcast with the Belfast Giants, he hasn't been behind the door in saying that they've wanted to do investment for so long around the SSA arena and building not even just an ice rink. I don't even think he said it was an iPad. I think he said it was like a leisure and health facility, a state-of-the-art one on whatever availability space that they have. And as you kind of highlighted, the car park to one side was one of the discussions that was had. And I don't think that's going to stop. I think the Odyssey Trust, probably still want that to move forward. I think that's still an opportunity for the city to have an additional ice rink in the town. Now, as you say, maybe it's going to be one of those things where it's only going to benefit in the long run, because what we're having is, if you have to think about it, if the Giants take up time in the during the week for if the Giants are taking up time during the week for their training, taking the public ice, okay, maybe they're doing it during the day, so there's not maybe much of an uptake for people wanting to go public skating that time in the morning. That's fine, but and also midweek, so people are at work and everything else, so maybe it works out fine for them. But if we think about how we can free up the public ice rink, so if we're thinking about if the Dundonald Ice Bowl, for example, International Ice Bowl at the weekend is primarily for public skating throughout the day, Saturday and Sunday, it limits the amount of time that recce teams, youth development teams, all those different pieces, it does take up a lot of the time that they have availability for this. And that's why we're seeing small teams, recce teams, we're seeing those youth teams having to practice at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So if we imagine that there's another rink in the middle of the city where bigger teams, like the youth teams, youth development teams for the Belfast, the junior Giants, we've got those kind of other teams across the Northern Ireland can come and do their training where the home of the Belfast Giants train. If there's a facility there for that sort of thing where it's more geared towards team training rather than public skate, frees up more public skate in the Donald Ice Bowl.
Do you think that then gives a line of differentiation between the two ice pads,
think so,
where they're not in competition with each other?
Yeah. I think so. And they'll use the ice rink, they'll use their second ice pad for public skate whenever it's available and whenever they can. But again, they'll still use the SSE for that other public skate like they still do, because the big draw about it is they open the SSE as a public skating facility in the summer and at the winter, because people want to skate where the Belfast Giants skate. And that's at the end of the day, even if they train up at Dundonald, they still want to skate on the SSE ice. So they'll still use that as kind of a public skating facility as well. So I think there's a bit of a draw for mix. But I think, as you said, John, I think that the way they'll target what I'd like to think maybe the way they'll target it is that there would be it would be a direct competition. It'd be more like, we'll free up Dundonald to have their ice time and have their public skate, and they can do whatever it is, but we're giving an opportunity to those teams who are wanting more sociable hours, shall we say, to come and train at the home of the Belfast Giants. And I think that's maybe something they'll maybe look at tailoring it as.
Definitely, and I think that what they'll look towards is maybe not go international size, now that they don't need an international training because they can do all their continue their training, key training in the international pad in Dundonald. They can maybe put an NHL size pad for team train for like non-giant team training or local hockey training, sled hockey, things like that, which would benefit from the smaller ice.
Well, does that then also benefit the Giants? Because one of the things that we see is we obviously have the Olympic pad, and sometimes we've seen Giants teams struggle to adjust early season to some of the smaller ice pads that there are in the elite leagues. So, is that just another potential bonus?
I don't think it's any drawback, and that way it's also a differentiator because you can't really put as many people on for a public skate as you can on the Olympic size. Because the Olympic size, when you really look at it, is significantly bigger. And I think that might be something to go with.
My last question on this, guys. Obviously, new ice pad being put in at Dundonald. Big selling point is the public skating. Back to Blue Blazers.
Blue Blazers.
The blue skates.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, do they not still use Topic ice skates up there? Do they not use I don't know which ones they use up there anymore?
Do you think they find a contract for it? Because the SSE, when they do the public skating, it's Blue Blazers.
It is blue, yeah. They are the blue ones.
Remember the time that I can't remember who it was. Was it the Caps? Arrived and didn't have half of their kit with them, and their netminder wore a pair of the rental skates that they had at the SSE.
Yep,
along with a couple of inside out Giants jerseys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, the fun times we have.
As well as their away fans, any of the jerseys the away fans had, they took them out of their
mask and taping them up and all.
So funny.
Yep. Talking of jerseys, guys, what a segue. Let's have a look at jerseys. We haven't. So last podcast, Aaron and I had a quick look at some of the Elite League jerseys that had been released up to that point. Unfortunately, stuff like screen sharing and everything wasn't working. I couldn't get it working. I don't know what was going on. And this time, I'm not even going to bother trying because people can go check these different things out on social media as if they want to. Guys, I'm going to start, if you don't mind, by looking at a team whose merchandise and jersey policies still befuddle me to this day, and it's the Guildford Flames. So this last week, the Guildford Flames put out a story about their alternate jerseys, which they have. So if anyone doesn't know the Guildford Flames, their standard jersey, their logo is the flaming G. Essentially a copy of the Flaming C from Calgary. They have an alternate jersey. They have a home and an away alternate that has the word Flames emblazoned across the front in the usual team colours. They announced this week actually, just a couple of days ago, that these alternate jerseys would be up for sale. Now, it being Guildford, these things are not going to go cheap. So this is a full roster's worth of jerseys, including blood jerseys, some with names and numbers, some without. The shirts are going to be sold for £190 each for a shirt with a name, or £100 for a shirt with no name. Now, aside from all that, they're not just first come, first served. It's entries. So you enter into a random draw to purchase the assigned shirt. Now, they've gone through a whole pile of other stuff that duplicate entries will be deleted, photo ID is going to be required for collection, and these things are not going to be collected until the end of November, start of December. Uncollected jerseys will then be sold at the merchandise stand that night, on the last night. So these are just registrations of interest, if you like, and the whole team's shirts are there. Guys, we have seen Guildford fans go insane for jerseys before, and the simple case is that they can't buy them. Mm-hmm. They can't buy replica jerseys. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think they do shirt off the back competitions. So the only times that they get to buy jerseys like this is where you've got this one-off special second jersey, or things like the playoff jersey auction, which is set in stone by the Elite League. So I don't know how they get around their agreement with Calgary on that one, when it's the league that are doing that one through Rhino. But guys, £190 for a jersey that may or may not have been worn, and you may or may not even be successful. And the fact that you can tick, on this website, you can tick multiple jerseys. How many Guildford fans do you think have just ticked all those boxes?
Did you see the top corner says any and all?
Yep.
It's like, I want them all.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine they just go to the first person drawn and said, "Do you want them all?"
It's. I mean, as you say. I mean, if it's the only way to get a jersey, but it's such pricey. It's like
my separate thing as well is these are alt jerseys.
Yeah.
These are not your jersey through the whole season. This is your one-offs. They're not like, it's not like all the other teams have got a cup jersey. This is just, I don't even know if they're playing them through pre-season. I don't know if they're playing in them for the cup. For example, I'm assuming they're not, because they're going to hand these things over in November, December time. And I assume that the Guildford Flames expect to go through into the knockout stages of the Challenge Cup, so they're not going to give away their cup jerseys at that point. So, in reality, what are these jerseys? If you're a Flames fan, like I say, it confuses me every single season about this, the way that they do things.
There's a wee comment there from Anthony again, from Banners. Apparently this isn't a new thing. It's been the same all the way from their English Premier League days. So, yeah, it's odd. What you can buy, just random, you can buy their practice jerseys, like just on their website.
I don't even know what they look like. If it was a practice jersey for the Giants, it probably doesn't even say Flames on it anywhere.
No, it has the big G Flamey logo.
So why don't, if they can do that, why don't they just sell a replica jersey?
I don't know.
Do they think they make more by charging £200 a jersey?
Possibly.
It's insane.
That
would fly in the face of the arguments that Todd Kelman was making this week about things like jersey sales.
Fired you the link over there.
Yeah, that was I did see that comment where it was kind of like, where he kind of alluded to one of the big factors around changing the brand and changing logo was he's seen that the Giants sold more jerseys, therefore the brand was a good idea because then they could sell more jerseys. I did see that, I did hear that comment, and I kind of thought to myself, yeah, well, the reason why there was a boost in sales of jerseys is simply because, well, you get a new brand, you're gonna want the latest jersey. Like, it's not, and because you don't want to be seen, some people don't want to be seen with the old the old logo. I've got
also
loads of them over here.
But it's nice.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. Like, it's just, yeah, it is what it is.
It is weird. Anyway, look, Guildford is what Guildford is, but let's move on, because we've had a couple of our one-off occasion jerseys have been released across the Elite League. So let's start on my side of the Irish Sea. Why don't we? Marty, the Dundee Stars have released their Halloween jersey.
Yeah,
and there's a couple of interesting points about how they've released it, actually.
Yeah, the Dundee Stars have released their Halloween jersey for this coming Halloween period, but they've announced the fact that you can actually go and purchase your own version of this. So you can purchase a copy. You can purchase a jersey, like a replica of the jersey, or they will have a bidding system in place to have game-worn jerseys, which will go up for bidding, and the bidding will start at £125 and will increase £5 per bid. The jerseys themselves are based on Freddy Krueger. If I'm right in knowing my pop culture knowledge,
you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and they're pretty good. I like them. I think they stand out as a good, nice jersey. I mean, are they as good as last year's Manchester Storm's nod to Stranger Things? I don't know, but I like them. I think they look really well, and I definitely think they stand out quite well. And I think the option to have the option where you can potentially purchase them yourself as a replica, or having the game warrants at that price and doing the bidding on it, I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's brilliant. What are you guys thinking on these jerseys? Do you like them?
I like a good random jersey. But not that you can't tell. I do love a
Says
good,
the guy sitting in front of a wall of jerseys.
Yeah. And I love a Halloween jersey. I do have a Halloween one, just at hand. So yeah, I like a good novelty jersey, and I think it's a bit of fun, and especially whenever they're different, like, far and away different from their current jersey. I think it's great. I think that's one's a nice example, and hopefully they're wearing green or red short covers or something, just to round it off.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's actually quite good that Dundee have got some positive remarks about their jerseys this season so far, because so far I think the standard home, away, and cup jerseys have been somewhat slated as being incredibly unoriginal.
If I've done it right by magic, I hopefully. Oh, let's take off the Brandon part there, so the Brandon's not on it though. Hopefully we can see those. But that's the frame. That's the Flames one. But this is the Dundee one we're talking about for anybody who's watching on YouTube or on Facebook or whatever. But the Dundee jersey is pretty cool. I do like it. So I don't know.
Marty, I'm going to test you here because I don't know how well you've prepped for this. We're going to look at another jersey here. Look at this on the ball. Host fantastic. Look at that. Belfast Giants obviously have put out the first of their seasonal jerseys, and this is going to be their Oktoberfest jerseys. Guys, I'm going to let you kick off because we had a chat in our group chat when these things got released, and you two are drooling over these. I dread to think how much money you guys are going to drop on these next week.
They are so ugly that I need one. It's part of Belfast Giants. We should put into context. The Belfast Giants will be having an Oktoberfest themed game night on the 13th of October, which is I think it's the Saturday game. I can't remember. It's next weekend anyway. But the Oktoberfest game comes about 2 weeks after actual Oktoberfest. So Oktoberfest was supposed to be last weekend, was the official Oktoberfest. But at least they're doing it, which is great. So on the night itself, they're going to have Oktoberfest themed food. So bratwurst, currywurst, and bratwurst, and I'm excited about that because I like currywurst, so it's going to be great. They're also going to do double pints. Instead of saying steins, they're doing double pint glasses, which I'm interested to see what they look like. Let's not hammer those back like we did in Germany. But again,
whoa! Again, this is you misremembering what happened in Germany. And me and Dave were fine. You had a massive stress head on about the accommodation and decided to go way back to the accommodation before the Giants game, came back and decided to try and catch up. So all of that was your fault. Me and Dave were fine. We managed to go out the next morning and go and buy breakfast instead of going out the door for 30 seconds and immediately needing the keys back to go back to bed.
Questionable sausages aside, that was a great day.
It was.
Bringing us back to the story. The Belfast Giants then have released this jersey, and I know I'll probably put in maybe go for maybe £10 worth anyway, at least.
Yeah, a couple of pounds.
Dave, I think you were the same. I think you had the same response.
They're so hideous, but they're fantastic.
If the one thing I'll say is if the Giants don't also have brown colored themed shorts to go with it, and their socks, if they're game night socks, and they probably will, if their game night socks don't look like lederhosen socks,
if they don't sell the hats. there
has to be a full. I mean, I'm all in. I'm banning, and I know people will be like, "Well, you can't just say that." They can't, if they had the hats perfect, brilliantly, and I'll take it. I'll take what again. Going to refer back to watching the View from the Bridge this week and Todd Kalman and his interview, and he addressed the goalie looking chain and the gold chains that are going on in Cardiff, and he kind of had it right, and I kind of agree with him. And I know we made fun of them because they are there, and we did make fun of them ourselves. And again, fair play to Aaron. I missed that conversation in the last podcast because I wasn't there. But when Aaron came on and he had his homemade version of the chain, it broke me. I just thought it was the most. It's a good thing I wasn't on. It's a good thing I wasn't on that show that week because it broke me. But I will agree with Todd. I hope people have lost a bit of sense of humor in some ways in relation to some things. They are cheesy. The gold chains are cheesy, and I'll still stand by it. And it should be £22, but I don't know, this whole thing, this whole Oktoberfest, I'm bought in. I love it, but I'm a big fan of
my biggest problem.
Germany Oktoberfest.
I have two problems with the whole Oktoberfest thing. First one is, and I understand why it's not during the Red Bull Salzburg game, because clearly we have to wear our CHL gear for that game.
And it's slightly culturally insensitive.
No, it's absolutely not. Hopefully, if there's any if there's any traveling German fans, you tell them that they're going to be able to get 2-pint cups, basically Steins, and you're putting on currywurst, and you're putting on all the stuff. They're putting on stuff down at the ground floor as well on this Oktoberfest night. You put all that on for the German fans. I think they would absolutely love it. As an experience, I think that would be great. But again, I understand that we can't wear a one-off jersey for that game because of how the CHL works. We've got our clobber for that game. We have to wear it. The second problem I have with this is I won't be there. So it's incredibly insensitive of the Belfast Giants to not do it at the game against the German team that I will be at. And I sincerely hope that they have some of those 2-pint cups next Tuesday, because I'm going to be heartbroken if they don't.
I'm wondering if it's a trial for things to come.
I mean, look, to be honest, if it's 2-pint cups, I'll buy 2 pints and carry it in 2 hands.
Yeah, but it's gonna be 2 pints of Heineken.
Or that, is it Murphy's, the Guinness ripoff? I've never not had a good next morning when I've been drinking that.
It's Murphy's.
It's
a plastic cup.
Likelihood is for that game, it's still going to be the usual Heineken, and it's a bit, yeah.
Do you know something actually? And I asked you guys whenever they announced the special cups to keep an eye for them, and if there is any chance of grabbing me one, do it. And that's because Dundee have now done. Do you remember at playoffs they had the playoff cups that you put £1 in, you got your cup, but obviously we all kept them. We kept them. So I've got the playoff cups from both days. I've now got one of the Dundee cups. And my thinking is that I want to go round all the rinks and arenas and collect these cups. I'll admit it, I'm weird and I collect stuff. Some of it is behind me here. But if there's an opportunity to collect that sort of stuff, I absolutely love it. I buy into it, and it's terrible. I shouldn't, but I do.
Coventry have some nice cups, but they're beer branded, like they're the Budvar.
They did. They had really, actually
it's
really
not
good there.
One of them saved your life in the taxi.
Oh crap! Sorry, Anthony's just made a very clear point that Red Bull Salzburg are not from Germany.
We never said we were geography professionals. You know? We're just about struggling talking about hockey here.
Whoops! Yeah, they are very clearly Austrian. So yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It's my period, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, it's been so long. And because it was an extended period between them, and I was the host last time, I just completely lost the run of myself. Thankfully, though, that brings us to the end of period 3. Marty, it does bring us on to overtime.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll have time for overtime. We're already, I think we've kind of run out of time for tonight. Unfortunately,
go on. It's just a quick question.
Okay. Quick question.
Oh no.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. Let me bring it up. We did have one question coming in from regular contributor, our most loyalist fan, at Hot Dog Pen 67. Mark sent through the question, and it's referring into the NHL. Obviously, there's big stories coming out of NHL and a big buzz around the new #1 draft pick from this year, the new wonder kid as being described, Connor Bedard's. It's his first season in the NHL. Do you think Mark's question is, how do you guys think Connor's first season in the NHL will compare with previous #1 draft picks since the lockout year? Do you think he'll be up there with Ovi, Crosby, and McDavid, or do you think he'll take a year or two like Stamkos McKinnon to reach his full potential? I'm going to start us off just because I had been thinking about this earlier on. I think this kid has already coming into this preseason for the NHL is already under such a microscope. Now, I don't know when it came to the likes of Matthews, McDavid, all those prospects, all these like new prospects, and like whenever they're all coming up and stepping in, I don't know if I've seen as many. I don't know if I've seen as many stories about those players as I have about this player already. Connor, I mean, he is touted. I think he's been touted as this wonder kid since the age of 13, where the NHL picked him up at around that young age, and I just think he's already coming in, and he's only 18 or whatever it is, 17, 18 years of age. I don't think he's 19 anyway. Yeah, he's young anyway still, and I just think he's got such big skates to fill, and I think he's under so much pressure already. I did like a story I read about him earlier in the week, and I've sent this to Mark actually through a private message. There was a story about how he stated that when it comes to overtime, if there's any kind of overtime in any game, he avoids making eye contact with the bench and with the coach so that he can stay on the ice for longer and doesn't get taken off, which I thought that's a bit controversial to say, but it just kind of it shows the kind of player that he is, that he kind of just wants to stay on the ice, and he's dedicated and he kind of has a real drive. But I mean, he scored one goal already.
That's great. That's great if he ends up on ice for 3 minutes and the opposition team scores.
Yeah, he's only been on. I mean, he got his first. I mean, the whole big thing, even coming into the preseason, was like, when's he going to score his first goal? When's he going to score his first goal? And I seen he scored one. Was it last night? I think it was, or the night before.
Yeah, he scored against Detroit.
Yeah, and I think like it's just, and there was a big thing made about it today in the paper, in the news, in the media about finally scored his first goal. I'm like, yeah, it's preseason, chill it. Like I just think he's got. To answer your question, Mark, I just think he's got big skates to fill, and I think he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders already. And I think it is going to take him a year or two. I think it's going to take him. I don't think he's going to come out of the block straight away and create like this kind of frenzy this season. I think it's going to be like other players, and I think it's going to bed in over the course of maybe a season or two.
I'll go next. He's not playing for Nashville, so I honestly. I just don't care. The only time I'm going to pay any attention is when he's playing against Nashville. The same with everyone else that you said there. The only one that I've got a passing interest in is Ovi, because I'm interested to see if he's going to catch Gretzky. But other than that, I just don't care. Like Crosby, like Captain Concussion, couldn't care. McDavid hasn't won a cup yet. Like Wonder Kid, who's absolutely fantastic, probably the greatest skill in the game at the moment, but he's with a franchise that he's never going to win a Stanley Cup with. Stamkos, McKinnon, I know that, I mean, they're more successful guys, but I would, like, you've put them in two different camps along with the other three, Mark, and I would absolutely do that. They've been successful because they're with successful franchises, and yes, they're successful in themselves, but as far as Bedard's concerned, I've absolutely no idea. I'll pay attention when he plays Nashville.
He's supposed to play with Chicago, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's
no.
When he plays against Nashville, I mean.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things. It's it will depend a lot on who he's on lines with and how they gel. I think he's going to score. I think he'll score good goals, and he'll definitely put the numbers up. But we all know that those big names are more than just the numbers. The Crosby, McDavid, and Ovi are franchise makers, and that's the difference. And we'll only know as it goes along. And a big part of that is that Chicago team needs a lot more than just one guy who can score goals.
Yep.
Hopefully that answers your question, Mark. You can let us know your thoughts on that. I'm sure you will whenever we see you at the game this coming Tuesday, the 10th, in the SSA Arena, when the Belfast Giants will return to the CHL. And John, as I say, we will see you at that game. Guys,
I'm looking forward to them playing that really, really good German team.
We are going to sign off for this week. As usual, you can check out this episode, all our previous episodes on our website at door14hockey.com. You can check out, if you want to watch the video, you've got to this point, you probably already listened to the Fid podcast, so you probably won't want to watch the video back. But if you do want to watch the video in the future and see our lovely face, or want to join us live, check out our YouTube channel, Door 14 Hockey on YouTube, and we're also on all social media channels as well, on Facebook, X, TikTok now. John, I've seen you've done a couple of TikToks, and also on Instagram as well.
Yeah, come over to TikTok, everyone. Come and watch someone closer to 40 than 30 try and do TikToks.
And with that, I think that takes us to the end of the show. Oh, the last thing I will say is, yep, just podcast as usual. It is a podcast, and if you are listening to us on your podcast provider of choice, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave us a review, rate us, whatever that way to do. It really does help. After our last shout out, we have seen an increase in that, so thank you very much for those who have done that so far. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well. Guys, that's it for this week. All it leaves me to do is to sign off. I'm Marty.
I'm Dave.
I'm John.
Have a great week.